Hey guys, Jesse with Canine Perspective, and I'm joined by Nina. Nina is a CP alumni. We trained her back in, I believe, 2020 or late 2019. She did a board and train with us for dog reactivity, leash reactivity. So I wanted to do a video on reactivity, and I said, why not use one of our CP alumni? So key thing is, of course, she's been remote collar trained. In this particular scenario, I do have her on a prong collar for this example. Another thing, and one of kind of more important things, is how we hold our leash, okay? So I call this the trainer hold. There's a number of names for it. Some people call it the lobster grip. So here I like to take the handle of the leash, put it over my left thumb, and then I'm going to put the slack of the leash over my pointer finger here, and when we clasp down, it should look like two rings, okay? What we don't want to do is this. This is a very common thing that clients do. So if the dog were to lunge, what happens is it's going to pull that out from your hand. When we do this, even if the dog lunges, it's a locking system. This itself also is a lock, but of course we're trying to take up the excess slack here. So I like to do this hold here because it's nice and easy to give slack, but at the same time, if I need to take slack, I can do that. It's a very efficient little and effective little levy system, okay? So we have our dog trained, we have our training tools, we have our leash, right? Now we're holding it correctly. We want to think, okay, I'm walking on the sidewalk, I see a dog coming. In the beginning, we anticipate that we're going to see reactivity. It's part of the process as we're working through it, as we're correcting it. So what I always advise my clients is the moment you see the dog, okay, it could be a block away, we already want to move away and give space, okay? What people tend to do is they continue walking, they wait till they're like half of the way or 3/4 of the way, so like maybe 20 feet away, and then they'll try to step to the side. And the problem with that is things move very quickly. Sometimes our dog, especially early on in the training, isn't as compliant when we're setting up, and then by the time they're trying to get set up, the trigger is already here, and then we have an explosion that we're not prepared for, okay? So all of this is meant to set up the human to succeed. Yes, the dog's gonna fail in the early stages because they're learning how to not be reactive because we're correcting the behavior. It's all part of the process. But eventually, through these successes on the owner's behalf, eventually the dog, we step to the side, there's no reactivity, and now we have a success, okay? So I'm walking, I see a dog, it's a block away, I already want to step to the side, towards the curb, and have my dog go into a sit position, okay? So the reason why we do this, and a lot of your Google searches, a lot of online trainers will tell you whatever you do, don't make your dog sit when they struggle with reactivity, okay? It's nonsense. So here, the reason why we want to do this, and I'm in the city of Chicago, so we have, most of the city is sidewalk, grass, curb, right? So in this case, I have space here. I have a block away. I have maybe, 30 seconds to a minute to prepare myself. Is once we step to the side, I don't want to have my leash slack like this, because then Nina, as you can see, has all this distance to kind of get away from me if she decides to lunge, okay? So what we do is we shorten our leash as much as we can, and if you notice, I'm completely relaxed. The leash is short, but it's not tight. I'm not holding her like this, okay? So this is another very common mistake that people do, is they do this and they start to tense up, they have the leash short, and this tension is giving feedback to Nina, which can then also cause reactivity, okay? So it's very important that we are nice and relaxed. So much easier for the average dog owner to read their dog's body language and to read the situation when they're stationary. Okay, this is much harder when you're moving, which is why I don't recommend trying to address your dog's reactivity while you're moving, okay? So yes, this makes it more difficult for your dog if they struggle with reactivity, because if we have a trigger coming, the dog's going, I don't have an option, I have to sit here, okay? So it makes them vulnerable. Yes, that is true. But it makes it easier for the human to address their dog and to read their dog's body language and the situation when they're stationary. I've had clients previously, before training with me, the previous trainer would have told them, oh, you're gonna keep moving, you're gonna, walk to the side, whatever, you're gonna try to keep away, and their dog would trigger, and what could happen was, or what has happened is, the leash goes slack, and the dog cuts across them, and then they trip over the leash, and in one particular case, the dog escaped the owner, and then attacked the dog on the sidewalk, okay? And I go, that's why I don't suggest trying to address reactivity when you're moving. In some cases, yes, you have to, but we want to try to avoid that. We want to set ourselves up to win, okay? So I'm here. I'm short, my leash is short, and I can read my dog's body language much better because I can see the ears, I can see the face, I can see the hackles, I can see the tail, I can see the chest, right? Are they starting to perk up? Are they starting to do body language changes that are telling me an escalation is happening, right? So if I see any escalation cues, I can already address it with my e-collar to break the dog's mindset, to snap them out of it, ideally preventing the escalation from happening, right? The other thing is we don't want to get tunnel vision where we're just focused on our dog and we're not focusing on what's happening here too. So I use my peripheral vision to see what's happening over here and then check in if I need to and look up and then check in on my dog again, because this is our priority, right? This is my responsibility. That dog is not my responsibility. That's their owner's responsibility. But we want to check in because sometimes people see you step to the side and they come up going, oh, did you step to the side for my dog to say hi? It happens, okay? So we're using our peripheral range, we're checking in. If it looks like they go on to say hi, no, we're training it right now. You'd be surprised how many people will ignore, my dog's not friendly. It happens all the time. We want to say, no, we're training right now. Just a flat out no, but trust me, you want to avoid my dog's not friendly because you would be surprised how often people will ignore that phrase, okay? So here, dogs tend to have a trigger window. You know, this is like the most reactive dog where everything in the world triggers them. Most dogs will trigger once we get an entry, like right here in the range. A lot of dogs will trigger here. This is a big one. Once this dog hits this threshold, walks through this threshold, that's where we're most likely to see a trigger, okay? So knowing this, I can kind of already be a step ahead in terms of reactivity because I'm seeing where I'm most likely going to see it, okay? So here, again, if we see any escalation, ideally we want to correct that beforehand with our training tool, snap the dog out of it, less likely for them to happen. Now, if we're still in the early stages of training, or if we have a dog that's more intense with their reactivity, it's still going to happen. It's a part of the process, okay? But it's much easier to control a reactive dog when we're stationary than when we're moving. The next thing is, if our dog becomes reactive, our instinct should always be straight up, okay? Just like this. We don't want to go back. We don't want to go up and back. You want to go straight up. Back, up and back creates more reactivity. It creates more tension. It triggers opposition reflex, blah, 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 okay? When we go straight up, dogs have a hard time navigating when you pull the neck straight up. And if you notice here with my prong collar, it's at the very top of the neck above the e-collar because this gives me the most control. If this prong collar was down here, that's a big no-no. That gives us less control, but still going up would be much better than pulling back or up and back, okay? So pulling up helps us contain our dog. It limits how much they can move while we're trying to address the reactivity with the remote collar. Sometimes it's a failure, that's okay, right? But I can at least contain the situation as opposed to trying to keep it like this and the dog is lunging like that. We also have to factor in if our dog becomes reactive, does it impact the other dog's behavior? Which is why we give a distance, because then we have a buffer here. So ideally, that dog and our dog would not be able to interact. So I'll watch here, Astrid. You got a stroller coming. So pull straight up, correct the dog, contain the situation as you're working through it. Once everything resolves, you can relax, and then we continue on with the walk. Now, let's say we had a reactive moment with Nina, and I could not get her to stop, and I went as high as, let's say, 45, okay? That tells me up to 45 will not work for the reactivity. So the next time I'm walking with Nina and I see a dog, I wouldn't be at 45, I would be at 50. Okay, because I know last time I tried it, 45 didn't work. And yes, there's some nuances. Was the other dog being reactive back? Was the other dog a high energy dog? X, Y, Z, so on and so forth. But for the most part, I'm going to jump to the next level, knowing that up to 45 didn't work the first time. And if we continue this process, sooner or later, I'm going to hit a range where all of a sudden it's like, okay, it stopped Nina's reactivity like this, and then also the next time she wasn't reactive. So it's not enough to just stop the behavior. We want to stop and then deter future reactivity, okay? People tend to get stuck in management mode, which is they can stop the reactivity, but they're always having to stop the reactivity. They're always having to address it and control it. There are extreme cases, they're very rare, where we kind of get stuck in management mode. However, 98, 99% of the time when we're using the right approach, right tools, right theory of training, we're going to get progress to the point where it's like we don't even need to worry about our dog's reactivity anymore. And most dogs graduate to we can just walk past dogs and it's not a non-issue, okay? But there is a lot of work that goes beforehand. The dog needs to technically be reactive, be corrected for the reactivity, see another dog, decide not to be reactive, and then there's no correction, and then they go, oh, okay, if I see a dog, I'm reactive, correction, even a harsh correction. I see a dog, I'm not reactive, no correction, okay? And then also nothing bad happens with the dog. So eventually they start to go, okay, there's no need for me to behave this way. I'm gonna stop the reactivity, I can avoid the corrections, but at the same time, I know nothing is happening with the dog. That's the progress point. Every dog is different. Some dogs, it's like within one class to the next, it's a 180 shift in behavior. In other cases, it's a process because I have to work the client through everything, go through all the steps, because in some cases the numbers end up being very high. But if we don't go through all those steps, the owner will kind of doubt and go, okay, well, I don't know if a lower number would have worked for my dog, right? Which is why we start low and then work our way up over the course of time. I'm never in a rush. I'm always willing to take my time, but we do have to press things in order to make progress, okay? So these simple steps or simple tips are what I recommend when you're addressing your dog's reactivity. Gives you a nice kind of structure and approach to use each and every time. Yes, it can be annoying having to step aside, but this puts the human at a much greater advantage when trying to address your dog's reactivity than if you're to try to keep walking and then you risk your dog cutting in front of you or tripping you over and then there being a full-blown dog fight. I'm Jesse with Canine Perspective. Thank you for watching.